Hey, welcome everyone. It's Carm Capriato, and we are going to let me see. We just want to make sure that here we go. Hey, everybody, Carm Capriato, Remarkable Results Radio, here to pay tribute to our friend Maylan Newton, coach, trainer, speaker in the industry. I so enjoyed Maylan's company over all the years. And before we get to the entire team that we have over a dozen people that want to pay tribute to Maylan. Go ahead, bring them up. I guess I just want to tell everyone that I thought Maylan's passion for elevating the industry was always off the charts. Every time I talked to Maylan, there was always something to learn or hear about what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
It was skills, as an example. He was a great storyteller, in my opinion, and there was always some kind of message inside of his stories. Been to some of Maylan's classes where I learned that, and been to dinner with Maylan. In fact, Maylan many years ago, as I was I wasn't a young person, but as a young podcaster in the industry, it was Maylan who said, "So, are you ever going to go out and speak or take a studio somewhere?" And he actually encouraged me to do that. He helped to support women in automotive. We'll hear more about that in a little bit. Maylan, we're going to miss you. Maylan's daughter, Sunny Osborne, is here. Sunny, stage is yours, my friend.
Thank you. So hi, everyone, and thank you again for having me here today. So like you said, my name is Sunny. I'm Maylan's daughter, and I know that my brother Chase is in the audience as well today. And, we've always known how deeply involved and passionate that Dad was about his work, right? The trade, the associations, the organizations, but most importantly, it was the people. And the last few weeks has really opened our eyes to just how far-reaching his influence truly was. And during this difficult time, it's been really heartwarming for us to hear so many stories and memories, and then just examples of how he's left such an impression on others. And we're really grateful for that. So we thank you for including us today to be part of today's gathering. And we really, truly, sincerely appreciate all of the efforts in keeping his memory alive and really celebrating the contributions that he's made. So looking forward to the conversation today.
So, Sonny, we're going to keep you on the screen for the entire thing, so don't hesitate to chime in and comment when you hear some really cool and great stories about your dad. Jeff, you worked with Maylan. Got any stories or three for us?
Wow. Well, stories that go back way back when. I remember one time when I used to sell automotive software programs, and I had a client that had a problem. She couldn't fire the manager that she was working with. And she cried out when I was helping her with the software. I said, I got a guy who can help you. So I called up Maylan and said, Maylan, you need to help this woman. And so that was, well, of course, we'd already known each other. I brought a lot of my clients to his workshops. And then several years later, I decided to go full-time coaching. And at one point I looked up Maylan, we should start hanging together, start doing some things together. And so we spent a lot of time on the road the last 8-10 years, traveling back and forth across the country, doing the service writer schools and other workshops as well. So some of the challenges I had, like one of the challenges I had with him, well, he liked 70s music just like I did. Only problem, he had this affliction of loved AC/DC. I don't know about you, but not mine. Sorry. I had to tolerate that. But we both have eclectic music likes. And so other than that, we got along with that just fine. Yeah, I always thought, Maylan, you got to come out of your shell. You got to be more gregarious. But in reality, though, I found myself being more like him and chatting with people more than I used to do that, just because I got into the habit of chatting with more and more people everywhere we went. And I talk a lot to people, but Maylan was one that talked to anybody and everybody. And it was amazing the stories he would share about just talking with people. And I like what he used to say is, if you're in a line with me somewhere, I'm going to be talking to you. And it was funny to watch him do that, interact with people. And it's the other thing about him too is he had lots of different passions. And one of them was his first grandson, I remember. And we were traveling down the road and he's looking at his phone, just the pictures. He could look at those for hours. And so, just another avenue of exploring the man and looking back at that and thinking, yeah, he was passionate about a lot of things and more than people thought. I think the other thing that people don't know is he was a giver in other areas. We went to breakfast somewhere. We were in Fort Collins, Colorado, and there was a group of policemen sitting there in the restaurant. And he said to me, "Hey, here's the company card. Go to the staff and say we're paying for breakfast for those guys." They had no clue who had paid for it until after we left. Those little things that we all need to take a lesson and learn. It's the little things that we do, and without merit, without looking for get on the stage to do those things for other people. And that's just, again, all the little different ways he touched people's lives in different ways.
Thank you so much, Jeff. If you're on our webinar, you're on YouTube, you're on any of my particular Facebook channels, please make a comment. We can see them here in the studio. We'll post them for you, just like our friend, Jim Morton said. He's playing a round of golf in Maylan's honor. Great stories, Jeff. Thank you so much for that. Bertie, Melissa Patterson, boy, you and Maylan helped drive that woman in automotive.
Yes. Maylan and I met actually during COVID. So not the usual way at trade shows or dinner events. We actually spent hours getting to know each other and talking about what the industry was lacking. And he was always looking to help shops and increase their sales. And one of the primary ways to do that is to solve people's problems. They're not looking to have their car fixed. They're looking to have their problem solved. He was always talking about that. So, I had spent over 23 years in the shop, and we had so much in common. During the trade shows, we realized how important it was to get women in automotive, to retain them. Often we'll leave the shops because we're just alone. So we ended up forming Amazing Women in Automotive, and with Tiffany Sherrado's leadership, it became a nonprofit, which is realizing Maylan's dream. And he was a hands-off guy. He was always the biggest supporter, and he actually funded it out of pocket for the first few years until we became semi-self-supporting. He was an incredible supportive of women in automotive every day of his life. So Maylan always said, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And he lived by that. He did take his business seriously. He never drank at the trade shows, but after they were done, boy, that tequila was a tasty treat for him. And he always enjoyed those dinners together. So my stories with Maylan, boy, we worked through editing his book and creating that master book, The Joy of Auto Repair. So I have spent many hundreds and hundreds of hours working with him through his seminars, and just deeply enjoyed his company. And it's been a heavy hit and a hard loss to know that he's not just that phone call away.
Thank you, Bertie. I'll never forget the last two amazing women in automotive at Vision, your dinners. I went with Maylan. He got up and he did his thing. He was always asked to say a few words, Maylan, and then him and me and a couple of others, we would go out to dinner. Now you're making me think, did he drink at dinner or not?
Probably not. Unless it was at the end of the show.
All right. Okay. Double check that. Okay. Great story. Rick White.
Hey, how you all doing today? It's funny. We talk about shop owners all the time to stop thinking about seeing other shops as competition. And I don't see anybody in this meeting as competition. I see us all on a mission to help make this industry better. And Maylan was at the front, carrying the flag. He has been doing this for he was doing this for a long time. And, I'm blessed. I mean, I consider a lot of the people in here friends, and some that I don't know as well yet that I hope to get to know better as we go along. But it's really very, very cool to be able to sit down and have a meal. Like, there was most of the shows, if Maylan and I were there together, we would sit and have breakfast one of the mornings, and it was always a hoot to see how many people would come up and talk to him. listened to I've heard a couple of his keynotes. I never saw him teach, but I've seen a couple of his keynotes, and they were just really, really good in connecting. But I'll tell you, in those breakfasts, what he absolutely gushed over, Sonny, was Indiana and Sawyer. He just all the time, like we would compare grandkids, right? And it was just so much fun. Like he'd pull his phone out, I'd pull my phone out. We'd have dueling pictures, and it was just so much fun. You know, I don't know for everybody else, but when I heard that he had passed out, number one, I was shocked. But number two, I could feel a hole instantly, not even on the inside, but just in our industry as a whole. It's not one that can be filled. He left such a mark, and genuinely somebody that cared not only about the people that were in the industry, but the people that supported it as well. And he is a really great example I think for the rest of us to attempt to live up to. So I really think it was amazing. So it was a blessing to have known him. And I'm looking forward to having a beer with him on the other side.
Thanks, Rick. Great story. This past week, I was in Amelia Island in Florida at the summit, the Institute Summit. Cecil, thanks so much for having us there. We had just a fabulous time. Walked away with some incredible content. Can't wait to publish it. And a picture. This picture, Tracy put up that picture of Maylan, came up on the screen. Okay. Thank you, Cecil, for doing that.
Are you, am I up?
You are.
All right. I think I'd known Maylan for over 40 years. Maylan and I met Maylan, I think I was about 21 years old, brand new service advisor in a Jim Hunt class. And Maylan was there. We were both extremely competitive, imagine that. And I've just known him that long. And, as a coach and a consultant in the industry, you wonder how, am I having an effect? Am I making a difference? And I got to tell you, Maylan made a difference in my life. And some of the stuff I know and some of the stuff I teach, it's because of Maylan. And, he and I, over the years, would see each other and pick right up where we left off. He loved his family dearly, and he loved his automotive family dearly also. And, you wonder, am I spending too much time over here and not enough time with my own wife, kids, and grandkids, etc. There's a hole in my heart that Maylan, now that Maylan's not here, and he was one of the best guys that I've known in my entire life. So we're gonna miss him greatly in the industry, and as who he was.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that, Cecil. Bill Haas?
Oh, so I'll tell you about how I met Maylan, because I think this is pretty rare. I met Maylan on a cold call. So we were doing training events across the country at the time I was with the association. And I needed trainers. We were using technical trainers and management trainers. And my idea at the time was to use some people that a lot of people may not know or may not have seen. And so I was going through the AMI catalog of instructors, and I run across this dude by the name of Maylan Newton. And so I start looking at his course content, and I'm like, sounds like there's some really good stuff here. So I cold called him and said, I need a trainer. Would you be interested? And he said, of course I would. And so being that I've have a lot of experience in hiring trainers and using trainers at different events, I'm prepared for getting the typical detail from the trainer of what you have to do for me and how you have to do it, da 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 da. And I said to, I started talking to Maylan about, what do I need to do? How do you work? Do you need deposits? Do you need, and he just said, all I need to know is where to be and when to be there. And I'm kind of like blown away, right? Because I'm used to some guys and gals that were totally the opposite of that. And I said, well, I need you at the Sheraton in downtown Phoenix. You have to be there on Friday. You'll do classes Friday afternoon, all day Saturday, and you go home Sunday. He said, I'll see you there. And that was it. And it just blew me away. And so that's how the very first time I met Maylan in person was to walk downstairs at the Sheraton on a Friday morning and look for a guy with a crew cut and see him eating breakfast in the restaurant. And I walked over and introduced myself, sat down, we had breakfast together, and man, we just connected. And, used him for a long time while I was with the association. And when I decided to leave the association, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. I did know that I wasn't going to leave the industry. I knew it was going to be something automotive. And he's the first person that I thought of that I said, if I'm going to do something with somebody, he's a guy I can do it with just because of his style. And so when I decided to leave the association, I approached Maylan and I said, hey, look, not a lot of people know this yet, but I'm leaving the association. I said, if there's something I can do to help you, I'd be interested in figuring that out. And from there, we developed a great relationship, and I got a great friend, and I miss him a lot.
Thanks, Bill. Easy to know Maylan. Easy. Vic?
Thanks, Carm. I only knew Maylan a short amount of time, but one of the things that I've learned is what people say about you when you're gone is a direct reflection of who you really are. And there's a story of Alfred Nobel. He actually read his own obituary. His brother had passed away, and the French newspaper had run it, and they called him the Le Marchand de la Mort est mort. The merchant of death is dead. And that was the impetus for him to invest what's known to be $250 million in today's money to create the Nobel Peace Prize. I say all that to say this. Prior to meeting Maylan, I've heard nothing but good things. Words like honorable, does the right thing, salt of the earth. They're attributed to him. And when I met him, everything that was said about him was true. He was soft-spoken, confident, caring. I mean, this guy made a mark on me, even though I only met him in person 2 years ago. And we spent some time on the boat in the Caribbean, and we were on some podcasts together. It's amazing listening to you guys, what impact he's made. And he's left a lot of us some really big shoes to fill. And, stories get attributed to people. And one story I heard was, he had a bad business dealing, and it's really interesting how he handled it. You never heard about it. He had somebody took advantage of him. And while other people would talk about it, Maylan was a man of integrity, dealt with it, moved on. And he left us a really, really amazing example. I'm saddened to know that I missed so much over the years of not having that opportunity to spend more time with him and learn more. But seeing this group here, you can see the depth of his impact. And Sonny, you had an amazing dad.
Thanks, Vic. Appreciate that. A couple of comments. If you're with us on LinkedIn, you're with us on Facebook, YouTube channel, you can say some things. We're seeing some really nice stuff coming in here. Frank Lloyd said, "We'll always treasure everything Maylan contributed to each of us in the industry, and honor to have worked with him on our show and our industry events." Yeah. Every time I asked Maylan to come on a show, I mean, he's had a couple of episodes that have really had some unbelievable listenership too, and we always appreciate that. Dennis Montalbano said, ironically, he stepped in for Jim Hunt when he suddenly passed. I didn't know about that. And another California guy, Nick Modesti, introduced to Maylan through my dad at an ASECA chapter. We'll leave that up there for you to read. Marianne Croce.
Thanks for having me here. When Tony and I met Maylan in '99, when we went to our first ATRA Expo, he was definitely a person that stood out. His dry sense of humor and the expressions that he would make, it connected with Tony and I right away. And for me personally, being a woman in the industry, we introduced ourselves, and he learned a little bit about us, and he knew that we were shop owners, and he spoke to me as a shop owner as well. He didn't just consider my husband the shop owner and me the supporting role. He realized that we were both shop owners and we were making decisions, and he spoke to us that way. And I really appreciated that. That made such a difference for me in my life. And then later on, when I wanted to make changes in my business to grow, my husband will laugh. Tony will laugh at this because he'll know. I would say to him, well, this is what we're going to be doing. This is what and I said, he'd be resistant, or it was stepping out of his comfort zone. And I would say, do I have to call Maylan and have Maylan get on the phone with you? I'll tell him what I need him to say, and I know he'll call you. And we would joke, Maylan and I would joke about that all the time. He says, you have my cell number. If you need to call me, you just give me a call. And so it brought some levity to, stepping out of your comfort zone, if you will. But a story that I noticed from being at different events with Maylan and having dinners, meals with him, things like that, and working, with amazing women in automotive, because he founded that group. One thing that I noticed so much about Maylan that I really admire was he was an observer of people, and he did talk to everyone. But what I loved about Maylan, him being that observer, was he would want to know a person's name. He would go up to somebody, whether it could be in an airport, at a restaurant, a hotel, wherever. And he would compliment them on how they were doing their job, or how they made a difference for him, or the service was so great. He noticed those types of things. He wasn't the type of person that went around looking for something negative to call something out. He was always looking for the positive, because people get enough of that in their life. And I noticed that really impressed me with Maylan, and it will always be front and center in my mind. When I first spoke, Maylan was the person behind that. He encouraged me to speak, and he talked to me and gave me a few suggestions, and I was so nervous. Like, can I do this? And he saw something in me that I didn't see. And he really encouraged me. And I remember the first time I spoke was at an ATRA Expo, and there he was sitting in the front row. And the funny thing is, people don't realize that, but for confidence, ever since then, I always pictured Maylan in the front row for me, and it eases me my nerves when I get up, because you want to best serve people, right? That's the goal there. It's not about you when you're up there presenting; it's about the audience, and that's really what you care about. So having that image of him in the front row has always helped me, and going forward, I will always have that. And lastly, I just want to say, and I know it's been said, but every single time we were together, his grandchildren, it would come up you know, how proud he was of both of his kids and his grandchildren. And it was always a great conversation. But that's what I remember most about Maylan. And it definitely is a loss. Definitely is a loss. I feel it.
Thank you, Marianne. Appreciate that. I will tell you all now, when I first met Maylan, I believe it was 2016. And if it wasn't 2016, it was 2017. There was an ASA event in Detroit. I drove over from Buffalo. I was just starting, just cutting my teeth. And I met a lot of great people that are my friends today. And up on the stage is this event, this panel discussion, this incredible, oh my God, we're going to teach all these great shop owners in the audience about how to grow a better business. And who do you think the two people that were presenting were? Bob Greenwood and Maylan Newton. Now, we've lost both of them. And I'm watching this thing, and they're just having so much fun. Come to find out, they never met each other. They never rehearsed. They just got up on the stage, and they were themselves, and it clicked. Bill, I don't know if you remember this at all, if you were there. And I think you were coaching by that time. So it's all over with. And I said, oh my God, I got to have these guys on my podcast. Look at what they can do and say. So Bob goes down on the left side of the stage. Maylan comes down on the right side of the stage. And I go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I picked Maylan, and I got in the line of everybody that wanted to talk to Maylan. And as I'm in the line and it's getting shorter, I look to the left and Bob's line is getting shorter. And I says, oh my God, I hope I can get to see Maylan before I can get a chance to see Bob. And I end up having a great dialogue with Maylan. I gave him my card and I says, I've got to have you on my podcast. And he says, what's a podcast? Like everybody did back then. And I explained it to him. And when I was all done with Maylan, I looked over and Bob was gone. Bob was gone. That later that night, I get on the elevator on the floor of my hotel. Who do you think's on the elevator? Bob Greenwood. I had to dig in my pocket and find my 30-second elevator speech to tell Bob who I was and that I loved his presentation, that I'd love him to come on my podcast. And they both became incredible friends, like all the great coaches that are here and on the show. So that was my meet and greet with Maylan. Dave Shadeen.
Thanks, Carm. Great to be here. Kind of locking arms of our industry with coaches, and that's one of the things I really appreciated about Maylan. I didn't know him as an inner circle, but a lot of his words went to my inner circle for transformation. One of those is when I lived in Reading, was a ASCCA Chapter 99 rep, and we would go down to the team weekends. There were conversations that Maylan and I had one-on-one that were impactful, and we talked about bringing change to the industry. And it wasn't a change of GP dollars, hours per repair order, all the KPI numbers. It was a change of mindset. It was a change of belief system. It was a change for, in a sense, the word transformation came up. And Maylan said something very unique. He said, really, Dave, the transformation, as you say it, Dave, is I really see people don't need to transform into something other than being themselves. If they would just show up with who they are, with the strength that, and I use the word giftings, but the giftings and talents that they have, our industry would be radically changed in a short amount of time. And he said, that's what we need to do for this industry. And I thought it was so profound, because so many times as coaches and trainers, our recipients here is raise your prices, do this, do that. And he was kind of at the forefront of bringing change to our industry by having the challenge of looking at ourselves and being authentic. I really appreciated how I really hadn't had any deep conversations with him up until that point. One of the things I noticed about Maylan is that he treated me like family. It was like, it wasn't an outsider getting to know him. It's like he already knew me, so to speak. And I think as I look at, and for me, context is important. I think the context of how Maylan showed up, he was approachable. He was open. There was no judgment coming from him. It was like this true embodiment, embracement of, you get to be you, and I love that you're you. And he just wanted to get to know people. He wasn't about his ego. Well, look what I've done over my life. Look what I do. Look, it wasn't that at all. He loved discovery of discovering other people. And when he started asking questions, with me and wanting to get to know me. It's like, wow, that was awesome. And I felt like there's always like a subconscious thing, you got, when I had my auto repair shop, I had other shops, and in one sense they're a competitor. In the other sense, I'm my own biggest competitor when I shoot myself in the foot. Well, when coaching, there was still an edge of, well, they got all these coaches out here. And at one level, it's like, after conversations with Maylan, it's like the line of demarcation that any of us are competitors is foolish. That in reality, it's like we work for one company called Transform This Industry, and we all do it from different approaches. And Maylan had I'll close with this. I really believe, and I didn't have spiritual conversations with Maylan, but I know he was a man of belief, a man of faith. And I believe that when he gets to heaven, that God's putting his arm around him and say, Maylan, look at the waves of influence you've had, not just over the automotive industry, because in the automotive industry, all these individuals, you've touched them, which means you've touched their families, their grandkids. You're leaving a legacy of influence, of being authentic and being real. And I had this vision of that. I never got to speak that to Maylan, but as I'm thinking back through, I can just see that his influence will have, in a sense, some eternal impact.
Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate that. Sarah?
Hey, Carm. So when I first met Maylan, I was not actually even working for my dad's company yet. I was still working in a shop, and my dad was speaking at an event down in Chicago, which is not too far from where I was living. So I went down to this event to see my dad speak, and he said, hey, we're going to go out to dinner with some people tonight. And that was when I met Maylan. We went out to dinner with Maylan. His kids were there. We went to this amazing pizza place in Chicago, and I just remember thinking how cool it was that these two guys who you could look at as competitors were really just friends. And he was so great getting to meet him. Wonderful dinner. And throughout the night, we just, when you met him, his energy was infectious. You felt good hanging out with him. And if you ever have heard the story about why I started teaching and why I came into this industry, my dad will say it like this, that after that dinner, I made a comment to him along the lines of, I can do what you do. But really where that came from was during that dinner, they were talking about how when Maylan had gotten ill in the past, my dad had stepped in and taught some of his classes for him. And I was saying, if that happened to you, I could step in and teach some of your classes, So in a way, Maylan is kind of what sparked that notion. And Dad said, no, if you're going to teach, you're going to write your own content. You're going to teach your own classes. And that's kind of where that started. So, we come to this industry for all different reasons, but I truly believe we stay for the people. And Maylan was one of those people that when you met him, you knew you were going to stick around for that. When I first started speaking and going out to events, sometimes my dad wouldn't be with me and I wouldn't know a lot of people, and I'd always look for that friendly face. And Maylan was always there with a hug and a smile for me. One of the things he never did have for me, though, was a $100 bill. And if you've ever been in a Maylan class, you may have witnessed him asking people for money. And sometimes they'd actually give it to him, right? And so I took that from his playbook, and every time I'd see him, I'd ask for a $100 bill. Never did get it. But what I did get was the lesson that you're never going to get what you don't ask for. And I'm really, really glad that I got to spend time with Maylan and got to know him. And yeah, we definitely, as an industry, are feeling the loss of not having him.
Thank you,
Sonny, do you remember that dinner? You were there that night. I think it was you and Preston and Sarah and Maylan and I think it was the five of us that went out for dinner that night.
Yeah, it was a deep dish place in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yep. It's coming back. Yeah.
Yep. It was like 6 years ago, I think, 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID, and I do remember that. And that was what I remember was Chicago pizza, right? We had to order it before we even got a table, and
right.
And then I'm trying to remember, did Dad drink during that? And to Birdie's comment, he did drink tequila, but it was always Patron. So always had it when he would come to visit. And I know that is something that, when he did pass, and my brother and I were able to connect and get together. We had our shots of Patron for Dad. So if anybody's thinking of doing that, he
All
would
right.
appreciate it.
During the show, it was always iced tea.
Yes, or Diet Coke. Yep.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's funny that this drinking thing comes up, because as many places as I've been with Maylan, as many times as we've had dinner together, I never saw the man drink alcohol, ever. He would talk about it. He'd say, "Oh, I'll have tequila later." And I'm like, yeah, but later never comes. And I've never seen him drink alcohol.
Jeff, last year at Vision, I think after The Amazing Woman, were you at dinner with us, Jeff? You were. And did he drink wine at all? I'm trying to remember. No, he
Jeff,
didn't.
you're
All right.
muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Jeff. But
Sorry, I'm sorry. No, Maylan. So after everybody else is gone, we would have dinner. So I remember we had steak one night at a nice great steak place in Fort Collins, and he had usually was tequila. Tequila was his favorite. Now he had
All right.
once in a while he'd drink a bourbon. That was really rare, but his favorite was tequila.
Well, I'm
And-
learning how to drink that, and next time I do, I will be thinking of Maylan.
Yep.
Wow.
In fact, but he did like Angel's Wings bourbon was another one of his favorites.
Okay. All
In
right.
fact, I bought a bottle of that a week later after he passed, and had one in his honor.
Ah,
Yeah,
how
just
cool
one of
is
those things I thought, wow. And it's good stuff too.
I love this little chit chat at this moment in time. Brian Gillis.
Hey, Carm, it's an honor to be here. So I met Maylan back in 2015 in Denver, Colorado. This is back when I was running a lot of repair shops, and we had him come out to do some service advisor training. And on some of our phone calls leading up to that, I kind of expressed interest in coaching and service advisor training. You know how awesome I thought it would be to be able to impact people like that. And he comes to town and he invited me to dinner, after one of our training classes, and says, "I'd like to, tell you all about coaching." And he shared with me some of the ins and outs. Just extremely generous. Definitely made an impact on my life. Just a great guy, and one of the key things I took away from that meeting in regards to service advisor training was to stay memorable, right? So I don't know if any of you all been to any one of his classes, but carrying it forward, slay the dragon, right? So yeah, he's a great guy, and he's definitely going to be missed quite a bit.
Thank you for that, Brian. I appreciate that. We're nearing the end of everyone that we had here to come on, and I would, if anyone has any final thoughts, but as I've been listening to all of you, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a vehement note taker. I am. Here's what I wrote down. AC/DC started us off, Jeff, right? Oh my God. Next time I hear an AC/DC song, who do you think I'm going to think about? Of course, The Amazing Woman in Automotive, givingness, grandkids, transformation, belief in you, unselfish, Skills USA. Passionate about that. We were going to work together this next year on that. Won't happen. I wrote down friendships, family, encouragement, approachable, authentic, and the $100 bill story. Love that. Anything else, gang?
Well, I remember he had something he enjoyed doing at dinner. And so if we were out having dinner, whether it was two people or a group of people, if you got extremely great service by the wait staff, Maylan would make it a point towards the end of dinner to tell the waiter or waitress that there was a problem and he needed to speak to the manager. So you can kind of imagine how the wait staff is feeling at this point, like, oh my gosh, here this guy that I've been serving for an hour wants to speak to my manager, right? So they'd get the manager and they'd bring the manager would come over and I'd say, and he or she would say, "I understand you needed to see me. Is there a problem?" And Maylan would do something crazy like, yeah, you probably don't pay that person enough money. They're phenomenal at what they do. And right. And he was right away to highlighting how good they were at what they did. And I think somebody earlier today mentioned how he didn't look for the negative. He always looked for the positive. And, you know, I always thought that was, and once he did it and you were at dinner with him again, you knew it was coming, right? But it was just fun to watch it play out because the wait staff would be like, oh my gosh, you know, somebody's unhappy. There's going to be a problem, right? But he always did that. When we were getting really good service, he would do that. And it was like a lot of fun to watch that play out. And he made it a point of letting people know that you should be appreciated for what you do.
There's one side of Maylan that we're talking about all this wonderful stuff, and it's all wonderful. But there was a time when he got in the face of the shop owners in our industry multiple times over the last few years. And one of that's about Skills USA in particular. And he said, you know, he talked about how he went to the skills competitions. All these other industries had tons of volunteers, and yet there was almost nobody at Skills. And he poked and poked and poked, and finally we got in California. We have a number of people that finally stepped up to help and do more with that. And that's one of the campaigns that we all need to take and say, how do we get more? You know, we talk about getting involved in the industry, but the number one thing he was saying, guys, and he was very stern and look at everybody and say, more of you need to step up and show up. Otherwise, our industry is going to die all the faster unless we start working with these kids. And so, and I'm going to have to carry that torch myself. I think we all need to do that.
Thanks, Jeff. Sonny, any plans coming up to celebrate your dad's life?
We're working on it. I think it's important for our family to facilitate an event that reflects who our dad was, right? And that's big and large and a room full of people and an opportunity to do what we're doing today, right? To share stories and memories and celebrate. So in progress, I think we're looking for maybe end of summer, and when more details available, the intent is for that to be widely shared and for it to be a public celebration. So appreciate the patience as we put together something that we feel is worthy of his honor.
Well, thank you so much. To the couple of people we do not have up on the screen, let me see who do not we have on the screen. Dave Shadeen, Mary Ann Croce, thank you for being here with us. We couldn't get enough more than 10 people here, but this was great. Thank you all so much on a very short notice to find time in your schedules to come and celebrate the life of a friend of ours and an individual who had some great impact on our industry, a great impact. So thanks. Appreciate it.